Okay. I hope everyone's been having a great Saturday. Thank you guys all so much for attending this webinar. My name is Devanshi. I'm a senior at Neuqua Valley High School in Naperville, Illinois. And I'm so excited for all of you guys to be here today. We have some amazing panelists, and we have a lot of cool content that will be shared in today's webinar. So really looking forward to it. Um, I'm also the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Power Up with STEAM. So we are an organization that's dedicated to empowering girls in STEAM education, whether it be in like STEM careers, early STEM education from like elementary school or middle school. And we found out about this new startup called Northstarre, which was founded by a Neuqua Valley alum. So the webinar is in collaboration with Northstarre, and we are so excited to host our Women in STEM panel, where you get to hear from four amazing panelists, which will be introduced later on in the webinar. But first, before we get started, let me introduce Power Up with STEAM, and I'll hand it off to Mal later on, who's the founder of Northstarre, and then we'll get into the webinar and the panel. All right. Okay. So Power Up with STEAM's three-pronged mission is from clubs through colleges to careers. So we have a club section where we build a community of high school mentors and middle school mentees, where high schoolers can give advice to middle schoolers just to engage them in different options that they might have and give them options to explore. We also have STEAM workshops that if you're a high schooler, you may want to get involved in as a volunteer and teach groups of middle schoolers or elementary school students. And this helps like the middle school girls transition to high school with like a clearer understanding of like what interests them. We also have the webinar aspect of our organization, which is, of course, something that you're engaging with right now. And this is the clubs and colleges part of our mission, where we host webinars with either college students or career professionals, where they share their journey and their experiences and anything that they've learned with high school girls to, pave and make the path a little bit clearer for girls who want to go into STEM later on. All right, Mel, I'll hand it off to you for Northstarre.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mal. I'm the founder of Northstarre. I started Northstarre with one really, really important goal, which was to ensure that every student has a professional network. Why was that important for me to solve? I think two parts here. The first part is we make huge professional decisions as a student. What we major in, what clubs we join, what universities we attend, how we spend our summers, how we spend our free time, and so much more. And one thing I've observed over the last 10 or so 15 years of career and understanding how folks actually end up in careers is that we actually tend to be limited on those pursuits based on who our parents are and what they pursued, what our friends do and what they decided to do, a lot of luck and what professional outcomes we were exposed to at an early age. And so I kind of really wanted to think about ways we can bring that comprehension of professional outcomes at an earlier age and build a professional network for students. And Northstarre itself hopes to give you direct access to college students, graduate students, young professionals, deliver variety, instant access, and comprehensive solutions here. So hopefully 3 parts: professional discovery, guaranteed customized mentorship for each student, and finding and joining professional communities similar to you. So very similar to Power Up with STEAM in terms of pillars that are really important for students and how they shape those professional decisions and how they can build communities to go about making those decisions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mel, for sharing about Northstarre. So now to get into the main part of our event, our panelists. Our panelists are 4 amazing girls from Stanford, Yale, MIT, Duke, and they're really on the path to accomplishing many great things. And so we're so glad to host them at our panel today. So maybe we can start with Lysiane, if you want to introduce yourself, and we can go in order.
All right. Hi, I'm Lizzie Nemlin. I'm a freshman at Stanford with a prospective major in economics and minor in French. I'm currently interested in like finance and consulting. I'm not like completely sure what I want to do in both of those tracks, but I do know I want to work with businesses and startups and kind of like see kind of like just small companies rise into big corporations.
Cool. Laura, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Laura. I'm a sophomore at Duke University, and I'm studying math and economics with minors in history and maybe English. Um, and I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with my career yet, but I've been looking at ways to apply math and more quantitative fields to areas of policy, like health policy and things like that.
Cool. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm a freshman at Yale and I'm looking at majoring at chemistry currently. I guess I also am uncertain about exactly where I want chemistry to take me, but currently I have interest in inorganic chemistry and I'm Yale. I'm exploring that through conducting research at a lab over the summer.
Finally, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth. I'm also freshman at MIT, and I am studying mechanical engineering here. And just like everyone else, I'm not positive exactly what career I want out of this, but I would be interested in working with robotics, maybe in the medical device industry, or kind of using material science to help mitigate climate change, kind of those two paths.
Awesome, really cool. So to start off with our questions, and this question is for anyone who wants to start off. Tell us about the motivations around why you are pursuing your major.
I'll start. So I'm particularly interested in economics because I like the idea of like it's kind of like this mix of like a social science while still having like the qualitative aspects of like computer science since I do code some stuff like regressions and retention rates. But like I think the biggest reason why I like economics as a major in its entirety is the idea of like you're essentially solving people's problems whenever they come to you for a problem about their business, maybe their profits are not like where they need to be, maybe there's a problem in like the optimal effectiveness of the company, but things like that kind of like interest me because I enjoy working with people, I enjoy kind of fixing people's problems, and I feel like economics is like at least the most clear-cut path into that.
I completely agree with that. That's a lot of the reasons I'm interested in the economics major here. And I think I always knew I wanted to help people with my job. I've tried different things. I've tried pre-med, pre-law, almost everything at this point. But I think I found that like I just really love math and keep coming back to it. And so I think that like you can find a major in anything that you can apply to the types of problems you want to solve. And so that's kind of like where the math and economics came in for me. And also a huge part of things like math is honestly creativity, which a lot of people don't consider, but I do a lot of creative writing, things like that. And so math has been helpful for me with that and vice versa.
I guess a lot of my interests in chemistry are just driven by me loving learning about the science. I've always liked it because it allows me to decode the world into like smaller building blocks as well as the hidden interactions that on the molecular level that create different relationships between substances. And I want to see where I can apply that in the future. And I guess how I can manipulate the matter around me to create materials with transformative potentials or to figure out cool things in the future. I also like chemistry because of its implications in various fields. It very much lies in the intersection of math, biology, physics, and incorporates them often, which means I have a lot of breadth to explore different topics within chemistry, as well as it means I can like specialize in what interests me most in the future. Through my experience in chemistry so far, I've seen that it has applications in different things from drug development to energy conservation to electronics and environmental sciences. So also I know that chemistry gives me the opportunities in the future to target problems that I'm most interested in and apply my knowledge into what I think I want to help solve in the future or what sciences I want to, what technologies I want to help contribute in the future. So the breadth of chemistry and its application also drives my interest into wanting to explore it. Just like was discussed already, it means I can like choose what problems I want to try to solve and then apply it there. Like I have interests in energy conservation and climate change, and I want to see what chemistry lies behind sciences between solar energy or other things like that. And I'm excited to be able to do that with chemistry in the future.
Yeah, I agree with what a lot of what Nicole said. I'm more of a physics person than a chemistry person though, so which is why I've chosen mechanical engineering. I've always been interested in how things work ever since I was young, just staring at objects in my house, trying to figure out how it moves the way it does and why it was designed that way. So I think having that kind of mindset plus the fact that I really do like physics and math and like hands-on things rather than theoretical ones, it all kind of came back to mechanical engineering. And yeah, the thing that relates to what Nicole said is mechanical engineering is super, super broad. So I can really do anything with this major, and I can work in literally any industry, which is why you were probably confused or shocked when I said, oh, I'm interested in medical device industry. And then I also said like climate change mitigation, completely different things, but both things can be done with a mechanical engineering degree, which is why I've chosen it.
Awesome, so interesting. So kind of stemming off of that, what are your future goals and career interests?
I can start. I guess I have a very uncertain answer to that, as I don't know exactly what I want my future career to look like, though I do know I want it to involve chemistry. I'm currently interested in exploring getting a graduate degree after I graduate at Yale in chemistry, but I'm still figuring out if that's right for me and exactly where I want it to take me, especially since I'm still a freshman. I'm still going through the whole chemistry sequence of starting with general chemistry, then organic chemistry, then inorganic chemistry, then physical chemistry, figuring out what I like most, where I want to apply it. I guess I talked about that I have interest in inorganic chemistry as well as how it's applied to issues related to climate change or solving problems related to that. And I'd like to explore that in the future. But I guess I don't have a terminally very specific answer to that, as I'm still going through figuring out if I like research, if this is something I want to devote myself to in the future, and committing myself to that more in my undergrad years to see if this is right for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty undecided too. I just kind of have always liked everything. And so it's hard for me to narrow down. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But I think for me, I've just been trying lots of things. I think that's what college is all about. Like I've gone through so many different potential majors at this point. I've done organic chemistry 1 and 2. I've done biology labs on cancer. Like I really experimented a lot with STEM, and I'd recommend that to everyone because you don't know until you try it whether it's something that you could see yourself doing in the long term. And kind of like the first times I've been able to see myself doing things have been using math and policy together, especially with economics. And so I think I want to do something in there, maybe policy advising, something like that. Yeah, but I think I also want to get a master's or some sort of further education because I really like school.
Yeah, echoing what Laura said, it's really important to try new things, especially when you're in college. Like I had never heard of material science before I came to MIT. And then now I'm doing research with polymers and things that I, was trying to avoid because I prefer physics, but it's all intertwined. And then I've learned that I can't isolate them. And it's actually good to know a little bit of everything. And I guess what I want with my career, I'm also undecided. I will probably go to grad school for a bit, and then I'd like to work at a startup. I think that would be cool, or more of a younger company, because I think you have a larger voice in it. And I interned at one last summer, and I wasn't expecting to be given a lot of work as someone who just graduated high school. And they handed me serious projects, which I really appreciated. So I'd like to go back to that in the future.
Yeah, and just like kind of closing on what everybody else said. Like I also am not really sure what I want to do, like even next year, or like in the next 5 years. I think it's always a question that I ask to other people, like for mentors or professional people, like, oh, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They also don't know. Okay, like you don't need a plan. Nobody knows what they're doing. They're just trying to figure out it like one day at a time. I think especially what the other people have said about like trying new things is really important. Like since coming to college, I figured out, okay, I don't really like math. So let's not do that, like you just figure out certain things that you're just not good at or you just don't care for. And then you're like, okay, I just need a pivot. And I think pivoting and trying to figure out what else works for you, what things you like, what things you don't like is like literally how everybody else figures it out. And so there's no clear cut plan. There's no real, like, I see myself here or I see myself there. I think I'm still in the process of figuring things out. I do know, however, I do not see myself going to graduate school. So that's one thing I know for sure.
I'm going to chime in really quickly with my just experience. I actually did a lot of the things that four of you have been talking about. My freshman year, I interned at NASA. And then my sophomore year, I interned at Procter and Gamble, like the company that sells toilet paper. So 180'd. And then junior year summer, I interned at a startup in New York City doing data science. And then I ended up working at McKinsey in consulting. And so I really did end up, exploring as much as possible in college to figure out what I wanted to do. I think the question around what you want to be is always unknown, but I think one question you should always ask yourself in terms of career is what skills are you working on now? And what skills do you want to work on for the next, just call it 1 year? Because if you can constantly think about what skills are you working on now, and if you're trying to achieve those goals, the career outcome is sort of secondary, or it comes as a nice consequence of that. And those skills are constantly going to change, and your career will also progress in that way. So I encourage us to all think about that question: what skills are we working on?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a good point because speaking from a high school perspective, I know like we're always like pressurized to like decide exactly what we want to do in college. And we kind of have this like fear that other people already know what they're doing, so why don't we? But thank you all four of you for kind of breaking that little bubble that's around all of us. And thank you, Mal, for like sharing that like skills are important. It's like knowing the material for a test versus like just trying to get a good grade on the test. Like both are important, but like one will get you the other, not like the other way around. But I think Lysiane mentioned mentors. So that's a great segue into our next question about like a mentor that you've had in your life. Like just maybe tell us how you found this person. Like what if they helped you with and any like opportunities you found with that mentor that maybe would be difficult for you to find without them.
Yeah, I think I'll add on to that. I think I have multiple mentors in like different aspects of my life. Like I have a mentor who like helps me do the college stuff, like actually like just do the day-to-day college stress, who's like, it's not that serious, calm down, you gotta be, it is fine, you're not gonna die. You know, she keeps me grounded in the sense that like we have like weekly meetings just to like talk about like how am I doing, how's my mental health, and it's honestly like a big sister. Like she's the greatest thing that I've ever met. I also had like more of a professional and career mentor who sends me different opportunities in finance and consulting. Like she's gotten me like information on like the Guggenheim, the HSBC, like these kind of like insight series. I have like a bunch of interviews coming up. Like my quarter has been very busy with just a lot of these opportunities that I just wouldn't have had access to if I didn't like put my foot forward and like join like mentorship programs that are aimed at especially like women of color who are getting people into these careers that tend to be male dominated. And so mentorship is something that I really push forward, something that I really advocate for, and it's something that I plan on doing for other girls as well.
Yeah, I've had a couple of different mentors. I would say in college so far, there's a professor I had my freshman fall, a history professor, but she's just been really, really like we get lunch all the time. She's so understanding, and I think we both have ADHD, and so like that helps because it's like I can see another woman who has that, who's doing really, really well, who's succeeding so much professionally, and so to talk to her about that has been so valuable. Another person I'd say is kind of like an emerging mentor for me would be my math professor. She's the first female math professor I've had so far, and it honestly took that for me to really take myself seriously as like I can be a math major, because I think representation is so important. Like if you don't see yourself in a career represented, then it's really hard to picture yourself doing that. And then finally, I'd say I have a really good friend here who's doing a completely different career path, but she'll help me. I'll like forward her email and be like, how do I respond to this? Or like, how do I reach out to this person? And so having someone like that, who's even one of your peers, can be so valuable.
Yeah, I also have various mentors in different locations. I think it's important to get like a variety of mentors. I have some who are currently in college. I have one who's recently graduated, and then I have one who's a bit older and helps me with more professional things. So yeah, I think it's good to have people who can talk to you about various aspects of your life. And especially the ones who are in college, my mentors who are in college, they also are like seniors at MIT. So I can ask them specific questions about what it's like to major in mechanical engineering and what classes I should take to get to the point where they're at now, and how to get research here and internships. So it's all been really useful information.
I guess I just want to echo all of that. I feel like my high school and college career has not been structured necessarily by like one mentor supporting me, but there's different people in different places of my life that supported me throughout high school. That looked like my AP chemistry teacher, who did everything she could to support me in like a challenging academic setting for me, or has written multiple letters of recommendation for me still. She wrote one for me for a summer opportunity I'm pursuing right now, or a debate coach I had in high school, because that was a big part of my activities in high school, who did whatever he could to give me any opportunities to succeed or to support my development in that. So I think a mentor often looks like anybody who's willing to support you and just help you find different opportunities. And I think it's important to like value those people and build those strong communities and relationships so you could continue utilizing them in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think this is really important for anyone, like no matter what age you are, like whether you're in high school or college, because I know like many of you guys have had mentors throughout like your time like in high school and college. So that's a really good point. Speaking of professional communities and advice, what kind of professional communities have you built at your universities?
I'm part of the National Society of Black Engineers. I think that's just my largest professional community here. There was a chapter of it in my high school, so I've been exposed to it a little bit earlier on in my junior year. And actually, that's where I got one of my mentors initially. They paired us up with a current college student who helped edit a lot of my college essays, which was really, really helpful. And now I'm in the college chapter of it. And there are just a ton of events, talking to different companies and networking, and this really useful thing they have called a resume book, where everyone just drops their resume and they send it out to different companies. So yeah, that's where I mainly am at right now with professional communities.
I think, oh, I don't know if Laura wants to go. I think a lot of my like professional communities are still being developed as I'm getting further into like involvement within the chemistry major, especially since I wasn't very set on this major before coming into college, or very like early on in my freshman year. Different groups that I've been involved in include the Women in Chemistry group at Yale, who often meets to have upperclassmen give advice to freshmen and sophomores on how to navigate different opportunities, what they should be looking at, how to reach out to professors to get letters of recommendations, or to ask to participate in research in the laboratory. And that group has been super helpful for me, because it's a bunch of women who have recently just gone through the struggles and the challenges of being a freshman that I'm going through right now, and they're always ready to give a great advice. I'm also I've also started working with a professor at Yale that I'm planning on conducting research with over the summer. He has been super helpful in order to connect me with his graduate students in his lab in order to figure out what I want to work on to support me as I'm figuring things out during the semester. As well as I just recently was accepted into a program at Yale for the summer, which is a community that tries to support women, underrepresented minorities, and first and low-income students in STEM, and build their STEM skills, create connections with other students, as well as mentors and professionals within fields that I'm looking forward to pursuing more development of my professional community with in the future. And I think at college, there are a ton of groups that you can always utilize in order to help you look towards the future. And it's very important that you don't shy away from asking even dumb questions or what might feel like people already know the answer of. Everybody was once as afraid and as confused to ask for help as you were. And a ton of people are always willing to give great advice and are always super friendly and help. So I would just encourage you to always reach out. People already experience the troubles you are and are always willing to give advice.
Yeah, so I pretty recently decided to be a math and econ major, so I'm still exploring those, but I've been involved with some other professional groups here. We have a program here at Duke called BAS Connections, where you're connected with faculty, so like professors, grad students, like just a whole team working on the same research question together. I did that my freshman fall. That was a great introduction into research. And I've done some other research here as well, and that's been helpful just to hear from people about their careers and think about whether that's something I see myself doing. And then I also think it's important while you're in college to pursue things that maybe you don't want to do as a career, but you love. For example, for me, that's writing satire. So I've been involved with our satire paper. I'm the editor-in-chief now with my best friend. So I think being able to still kind of keep that on your plate, like something that you just do for fun that you really love, is important. And that's also helped connect me with people in that industry professionally, which has been great.
Yeah, definitely want to add on to both what Nicole and Laura said. Half of it is really just putting your foot out the door, and just kind of like putting yourself out there for these type of professional development, like clubs. Like for me, I actually came into Stanford as a poli-sci major because I was on a pre-law track. And then I ended up joining Women in Business. And then that's kind of how I got more into economics and finance. And like that's literally just how I got like one of my mentors. And then I ended up going on LinkedIn during the break, became part of this another mentorship community that's more remote. And that's how I got my second mentor. And it's literally just finding opportunities whenever you can and just putting yourself out there, even if you might get rejected, is definitely one of the ways that you can kind of build your professional network and professional development as a person. And what Laura had said about like also finding clubs that make you happy just for the sake of them making you happy is really important. Like you're going to go through days where you're like, I'm tired, I'm stressed, I finished midterms. At least I have this one club that makes me happy that I don't have to stress about. That's literally just social and fun. Like for me, that's Fashion X, which is literally just a club where we talk about fashion. We talk about the most recent walkway, we crochet, we make jewelry. It's honestly just very de-stressing, and it's something that I just enjoy to do because I enjoy to do it. And so I would recommend everyone just kind of finding something that makes you happy and having both the professional side and just the social side that'll keep you balanced and just, well-rounded as an individual.
Awesome. Yeah, this completely convinced me to pursue and continue music in college because I was like debating, like, do I have time to like be an engineering major and also like do a small ensemble group like twice a week? But this convinced me, so thank you. But speaking more about like engineering or not engineering majors and like what you're studying right now, how did you prepare in high school to pursue your current major? And what would you say to someone who's kind of like undecided about what they want to do and like doesn't really know where to like apply, like how to like what major to apply for because they really like doing everything like I think one of, or two of you mentioned earlier.
I found that question so like so interesting because I felt like I did not prepare at all for this major. Like I pretty much was just like, why not? You know, why not just take an econ class and just figure it out from there? I don't think that like anyone should, or any high schooler in particular should feel like, oh, like, how can I prepare for this major? Because honestly, you don't know what the major is going to be like until you get to college. I know people who like said they wanted to do pre-med and then they took chem and they dropped it. And now they're doing something completely different that they love. And it's like, you know, there's only so much preparing you can do in high school for college because college is nothing like high school. Like it'll put you to the test. It'll teach you so much about yourself and what you like. And, you know, I think we talked about this earlier. It's just exploring, just knowing what you like and what you don't like and what skills can you gain and what things don't interest you. You know, you don't really get the full picture of what a major is unless you start taking courses in the major. So, mhm.
Yeah, just to echo that, I completely agree. I had no idea what I wanted to do in high school. I know a little bit more now, but not a ton. And I think that's okay. I think that's good. Like, use high school, definitely middle school, everything as a time to just try different things. I took like every class I could at high school and every different subject. I did research in completely different things in high school, like linguistics, and then I did math competitions. Like, I think it's just all about trying things and seeing kind of what sticks and seeing what you can see yourself do. But I definitely wouldn't stress too much about it. And then a little bit more practically, like I tried to take, like to prepare for, I figured I would do something in STEM and something in humanities. So I tried to take a lot of advanced like math and science classes. And then also I was very, very involved with like writing at my school, lots of writing clubs and things like that. So yeah, I think just kind of trying different things out, trying to get a little bit of the background skills you need, but don't take it too seriously. Like you'll totally be prepared once you get to college, and you'll figure things out there. I think it's hard to tell what you want to do when you're in high school.
I think a lot of my preparation was very similar to that in high school in terms of I had a lot of interests, my biggest ones being chemistry and political science, but I didn't know where I'd eventually want to commit myself. So I think the main thing that prepared me was taking as many advanced courses in my interests as possible in order to give myself a breadth of a background in order to be able to pursue whatever classes I want to at Yale or where I want to commit myself in the future. I knew that I liked STEM, so I took APs in that as well as English APs and other ones because I knew that would give me a high level of preparations for whatever classes I want to. So I definitely encourage everyone to take as many high level classes, obviously, as you can. You don't want to overwork yourself, but to not be afraid to only move down one track and to move down multiple tracks, and you don't have to commit yourself to anything. My big commitments in high school definitely were not in line with my major. I did nothing almost like STEM related as extracurriculars past the classes I took. But you still have those opportunities in college to develop those skills, whether that be through extracurricular or professional opportunities in your classes. So you will have the time in order to do that. I also think there's sometimes a fear that as you're going through college applications that you may look underprepared for even the major you apply as, or that you don't have the professional background to support it. Colleges look at things differently. I think some colleges obviously want you to be committed to a major from the beginning, but there's a lot of colleges, including my experience with Yale, that you apply with an interested major, but you're undeclared from the beginning. You have time to decide in what you want to commit to. You have a lot of time in your schedule in the early years in order to take different classes and different interests. So you do not have to feel the pressure in order to commit yourself to something, as well as to show a college that you are interested in something and you're eager to explore it, even if you don't have the background in it. So I think in high school, prepare yourself for a breadth of opportunities, but don't feel like you need to narrow them down in order to look good for college applications or to be prepared for whatever major you're doing in college. Obviously, if you're set on a path and no, I want to do medicine, I want to do STEM, it always helps in order to seek out external opportunities in it, because that will give you the skills that maybe give you a heads up in college on your peers or give you access to opportunities earlier on, but you don't need to feel the pressure to do so.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Nicole said. I don't even know if I have anything else to add, but I had a very similar experience where I did not do anything really with engineering until I got here. I did a really wide variety of extracurriculars. I had like German club, I had public speaking, I had rowing, like really different things. I had like some community engagement ones. And then the only thing I had related to STEM wasn't even kind of doing research in it. It was just a program that was very similar to this, where I just invited guest speakers over to talk to high schoolers. So I didn't really have any like research or engineering application type of thing. And if I did, it was usually just something over the summer. It was never any extracurricular like during the school year. So yeah, you do not have to be focused on one thing before you get to college. Like you do not have to spend all of your time and energy just specifically on one major. I think it's actually better to have more breadth than depth. Like that's I've gotten advice from several people who say that the largest mistake people make when they go into college is being narrow-minded and not like just trying to go after one major specifically and limiting all your options. They say that's the biggest mistake. They say like keep an open mind because you might change your major and interests at any minute. And it's totally okay to not have background information because I mean, at least at MIT, they do a really good job of getting everyone on the same level. Like you all have general institute requirements. Everyone has to take these classes so that you have the same amount of knowledge before you start getting into those more intense classes. So yeah, that should not be a worry at all about whether or not you have enough information to pursue a specific major. That's what college is for. You're not supposed to have the information beforehand. Yeah.
I'm going to also probably just add a little bit as well. There might be students that feel like they don't feel comfortable hearing like it'll be up in the air and flexible, especially considering how I was in high school, which I recognize was like maybe 15 years ago. But when I was in high school, I was very overwhelmed and I felt like I needed to have an exact major and career and everything figured out. And that's exactly what happened on day one. So I ended up pursuing a major in statistics and business and really wanted to focus on a career like data science and machine learning. I think one of the things though that just to keep in mind is the world and industries are changing. So with like the growth of things like Web3 and other types of industries, you need to be very hyper aware of like how those changes sort of impact what you decide to do. So I think what I would say is like, I totally agree with a ton of the panelists to not go in narrow-minded because things change so quickly that you need to be able to just constantly absorb information from the peers around you and what's happening at a macro level in like the economy, and then have the ability to backtrack into, well, what do I like to do? How will this translate to some of the themes that I see happening externally? And how do I actually go about making a decision after that? So I would think about it that way. There are some things I wish I would have changed in college as well. Look, you know, as a 28-year-old looking back, and it hindered me because I went in so narrow-minded to say like, there's no way I'm changing this. Like, this is what I'm doing. It's really important to stay flexible because you learn from your peers, you learn from seniors, you learn from young professionals that come in and talk to you, and you should be able to absorb that information and be able to change your mindset, which is not only an important skill for college, but a very important skill for your life. So.
Wow, thank you so much. This is really helpful, even for me, like, and I'm a senior, like this is really helpful for I'm sure everyone. But on the path of advice, what advice do you have for women in high school who are interested in pursuing STEM? Like anything that you've experienced, anything that you would like say to the girls in the Zoom room right now?
Number one, I'd say don't doubt yourself. It can be easy to do that. I think especially as a woman, I feel like there's this expectation that you kind of like take what other people say like very highly into account. And while it's important to listen to advice from people you trust, like maybe it's your parents, maybe it's a teacher, I always felt this pressure because I was often, you know, as a woman, like in my AP Calc or AP Chem, like there's not a lot of other women sometimes. And so, and even the teachers a lot of times are going to be men, and that can be discouraging. But I think you kind of have to like be willing to try to find a mentor who's a woman who can help you through things like this. I think that's really, really helpful. And I wish I had that in high school. Two, I would say just like keep going. Like if you know you like it or you want to try to like it, like just keep trying your best, and like it's okay. Like I cried when I got a B in math my junior year of high school. Like it was the most upsetting thing that like had happened. And I don't even remember that now. And that class made me think I was terrible at math, and now I've realized I'm not. And then number two, I would say, don't be afraid to ask people for help. I got my summer research opportunity last summer by emailing the professor because she had listed an opportunity to work in an ovarian cancer lab, which I really wanted to do because my aunt had ovarian cancer and it said it was for juniors only. I was a freshman. I just emailed her, and you'd be surprised what people are willing to do for you when they see that you care. And then when I was in high school, like I reached out when I was doing some linguistics research to a really prominent scholar, and he invited me to his house to like have tea in his garden and talk to a speaker of the endangered language I was researching. So if you like put yourself out there, ask for help, and don't be afraid to like keep trying. If you fail, I would say that's going to get you really far.
In addition, like I would say, don't be humble. Like that is probably the biggest thing that like even I'm still working on, like not being so humble to the point where like you're undervaluing yourself. Like everyone, I think especially for women in particular, we get intimidated. Like for a lot of us, we do get very intimidated, especially when we're in rooms that are like heavily male dominated, or like our voice is just not the loudest in the room. And I would say definitely be able to understand your worth, like knowing that you have these skills, you know what you know, like you know what you know what you have, you know what skills you bring to the table, and understanding, being able to say, you know, hey, I know this, okay, this is what I bring to the table, and like I deserve to be here, I deserve a seat. Okay, I take up space as well. I'm here for a reason. This is what I know. This is what I can bring, and I'm important. And I think that's something that I'm still working on to this day. Like I literally got told this morning. Don't be humble. So it's something that I definitely want to pass on to younger girls as well. You know, understand your worth. You're here for a reason, you know?
I think the best advice I have to give is also very much in line with knowing your worth, and it is to not be afraid to take opportunities that are offered it to you, or to just go for different opportunities that you might even think you might not achieve. I've done a lot of reflecting recently about the opportunities that I've missed out just because I've been too afraid, or I've doubted myself and thought like they're just going to reject me outright. This is just going to be embarrassing. I'm not fit for this. But know that it will not hurt to try out for things, or to try new things, or to reach out and ask for things. Just like it was just shared, maybe a cool linguistics professor will actually have dinner, tea with you. Amazing things happen all the time, and you are able to achieve them. If you don't try, it will hurt more than the small embarrassment of getting a rejection, as well as you have the big chances of missing out on things. So know that you have the abilities to achieve a ton of things, and it's important for you to continue reaching out for opportunities because it will have greater benefits and costs.
My piece of advice is to ask questions. I think this is the thing that I struggle with the most. I was thinking more in a class setting, but I guess this can relate to anything really that everyone else was talking about, like asking questions, asking if this opportunity is available, etc. In the class setting that I was thinking of, obviously classes are hard and you don't understand everything. And I think the majority of people just go to their friends afterwards to ask for help. But I'd really encourage all of you to directly ask questions in class or go to your professors, because number one, not only will you get the correct information from your professors, who knows what your friends, if your friends are telling you, you know, the right methods and things like that, but you'll also be connecting with your professor, networking with them, having them know your name and your face. I mean, right now I'm taking basically general institute requirements as a first year, and there are like dozens of people. There might even be hundreds, I don't know, but there's no way the professor knows my name, let alone my face. And I've always been trying to work up the courage to, you know, ask a question. So I I encourage all of you to build up your level of questioning and get to a point where you're comfortable, shouting out your question in a lecture hall with like dozens of other people there, because then the professor will know who you are. You'll be able to get a letter of recommendation from them if you need in the future. And it just helps you gain more information that way, because you will get the answers you need.
Yeah, I also think that Ruth's like point applies to high schoolers too. Like speaking from a high school perspective, I know it's like kind of intimidating to like ask a question in front of like the class. Like, what if it's a dumb question? Like, what if my like classmates think I'm stupid? Something like that. But like seriously, like don't be afraid to do that as something like I've learned through my experience, because I've had those instances where like my friends have told me something and I got it wrong on the test. So I've always gotten like the right answers from my professor. So thank you, Ruth, and everyone else for like reiterating that fact. Um, our final question for the session is, what is a hurdle or like a roadblock that you were faced with during your high school career, and how did you overcome it? What did it teach you? Anything else that you might want to add?
Um, I don't know if, well, this is something that everyone has touched upon a little bit, but just um, being a Black woman who is interested in STEM, that's basically the largest struggle, I think, for me in high school, especially as I got older and started taking more advanced classes. There was one point in my junior year where I was literally the only Black woman in my class. Like there were, 26 other people. I was the only one. There were 4 other girls. It was very uncomfortable. That entire year was very uncomfortable because, again, just when you're in a room surrounded by guys being taught by a man, and you just don't feel like you're heard, and you feel like uncomfortable. Just the fact that there isn't anyone else in the room who looks like you makes you feel like your own thoughts and your just everything about being in that class makes you feel like invalidated in some way. It's hard to describe. I know you've all probably felt it if you're here interested in STEM or any other field that is male dominated. And I don't know if I've really ever overcome it, because again, I always will be a Black woman who is interested in STEM, so it's not going to go away. Right now, again, I've been saying I'm taking like large classes because you have to take general institute requirements. So right now, I guess it's like as diverse as it can be. So I'm not feeling that level of uncomfortable. But as I get older and start taking more advanced classes within mechanical engineering, I know that it will drop off, and I'm prepared to get to that point again. And the only thing you really can do is find whatever small group of women in that class that you can, and like make sure you have that community to talk to outside of class. Like I mentioned before, I have the National Society of Black Engineers, which will help me, and I also have Society of Women Engineers. So if I ever need to talk to people who are in the same situation as me, who might feel like they're underrepresented in the classes that they're in, I can always talk to them. And another thing I did and hope to continue to do is to just encourage girls to pursue STEM. That's what I did in high school with a club I had, because I mean, the only way to stop this feeling from continuing is to try to mend that gender imbalance, that gender gap. And the only way to do that is to get more girls interested in STEM.
Yeah, just building off that, I think that my biggest internal issue throughout high school was feeling like I had to be excellent at every single point, because I was a woman, because I was Black, because I was like first generation and my parents were immigrants. Like there was just a lot of things where I felt like I had no space for failure. Like it just could not happen. It was success at any point and every point possible. And that led to a lot of stress. And you don't grow as a person if you're constantly thinking, I have to get it. Like there's no other option but success, because nobody's successful 100% of the time. And when you fail, or if you fail, like that fall from expectation is absolutely horrendous. You know, it's terrible. You don't want to experience that. So like coming to terms with the fact that like, you know, you can't be perfect all the time. And you have to allow yourself some grace to understand like I won't always get it, or else I'm not as good as this other person, and that's okay because I tried my best. And being okay with the fact that sometimes you're not going to be the best in the room. Sometimes, like, you're not going to understand this concept and you're going to have to work 10 times harder to understand it. It's just part of life. And I think that's just one of the biggest things that I'm like still working on and like definitely struggled with throughout high school.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that a thing I've noticed, especially as like a woman, is that I feel like I only would raise my hand to like say the answer if I was completely confident in myself. And I think that's different for a lot of men because there's not that same pressure. And I think like as a woman or as someone who's underrepresented in STEM, it can feel like you have to prove yourself by being better than everyone. And I think it's important to know, like you just said, like you don't always need to be like the best at everything. Like it's okay to have grace with yourself and like I don't know, I like just to not put that pressure on yourself because everyone's kind of putting pressure on you already. I would also say, like going back to like something like an obstacle in high school. I mentioned my junior year math class. It was to this day the worst class I've ever taken, and I've taken classes that are harder than pre-calculus in college. But the teacher was just so unsupportive, I think, and he made me think that I was truly bad at math, that I didn't belong there, that like I every time I looked at math after that, I was like scared because of how like emotionally hard that class was. Like people were crying in the class. It was terrible. And a lot of people, especially I noticed a lot of women stopped taking the advanced math classes after that. And that was really hard to see. But you know, I came back to math in college and I finished out in high school and everything. And I think now that I am more sure of myself and more confident and like more okay with just doing things I like because I like them. I feel so much better about doing math. I feel like I'm good at math again. And when I went back to my high school to tell them I was majoring in math, it felt so good, like a full circle moment. But I would say like it's okay to mess up. You know, like it doesn't mean that the major isn't for you or the career isn't for you. And everyone's already probably putting pressure on you, I'm sure. So don't add that by putting pressure on yourself. Just, you know, have grace with yourself. Be like, don't be too humble, know how great you are, but don't be afraid to mess up.
I think a lot of my high school experience is very similar to what's discussed here. But also, to kind of tally on to what we talked about earlier, in high school, I was very interested in different subjects. So I loved taking different classes, but also I was confused on how to, even if I loved chemistry, I was very confused on how to seek out specific external opportunities to further my career or interest in that. Especially as a first generation student, it was very much on me to figure out what to do when, how to approach different opportunities. And I found myself often just sticking to what I could find in high school all the time, which is my AP classes that I thought would strengthen me, which of course did, as well as just the few STEM related clubs that my high school had, which really was not a lot. And it was math team for me that I participated in, but there was nothing specific that I could find more in line with chemistry or my specific interests. And I think that was very difficult for me in high school, just like in a sense of knowing I wanted at times to pursue something further, but not being able to, whether that was because of confusion on how to approach this or just general feelings of inadequacy in it and being afraid to reach out for opportunities. So if anybody is experiencing that in terms of you know what you want to do, but you don't know how to approach it, please ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to any of us or other upperclassmen in your school or college or recent graduates of your high school or anybody you can find to reach out. People are always willing to help in order to strengthen your background, in order to help you approach opportunities, as well as to give you advice. So I think it's important to, as we've already like talked about, ask for help, seek out opportunities, and just try to work to give yourself the opportunities that you deserve. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your honest advice and for sharing your experiences. I know this is really helpful for me, and I've already like kind of started on this path of like going into college. Um, and I'm sure it's been very helpful to our attendees as well. Yeah, thank you, Laura, for putting your email in the chat. Any of you three want to, or Mal want to do it as well. I think that's a really good resource. But yeah, just to conclude the webinar, we have some more details about how to get involved with either Northstarre or Power Up with Steam, and just like more resources. So before we get into that, just like some key takeaways. It's really important to have some like visibility into STEM careers, and um, introducing role models like our four panelists today, hear from their experiences and kind of like what they're interested in, can like really help. I know it's helped me before. And it will help many of you. Mentors are really important too. We had a question earlier about mentorship and how it's not just mentorship in college, it's also mentorship in high school too. And I think it's personally been really helpful for me, if you have someone who can guide you into achieving and like working through what you want. And that's something some of our panelists also mentioned as well. And additionally, the importance of a professional community is really important. And I think Power Up with Steam and Northstarre both help to achieve this goal, to either like connect with professionals, either through like webinars or get some one-on-one time with them. This is something that can really help. So now I'll turn it over to Mel just to give some debrief on Northstarre.
Yeah, I think a lot of the pieces here on, I think through my experience, my parents were not very helpful. I'm also a first generation United States college student, and navigating what to major in, how to think about my time, which is so precious, my free time, my summers, the 8 hours that you're working throughout the day. I had a tough time having conversations with them around how to think about that, just because they grew up in a different country. So I feel like I started this with the hope that we can actually form communities of people that have similar interests, and you can, as a middle school or high school student, reach out directly to a college student, a graduate student, or a young professional and ask them directly for their advice, and fill out the spectrum of talk to 10 people, talk to one person, talk to 100 people. It's totally up to you. Low ego space in terms of asking all of the dumb questions and getting them answered. Finding a community of people that are, pursuing the same things that you're even kind of interested, or maybe pursuing the things that you're not interested in, but you're curious to learn more about. It's really a place for exploration and discovery and getting that direct access. And I hope that with a Northstarre and Northstarre, the link here, we can actually democratize a lot of the access to professional resources, so you aren't limited based on what you're exposed to in middle school and high school. And coming off an experience, I heard someone actually give an experience around how they had a bad math class. I had a bad AP computer science class in senior year of high school, and it just turned me off from that subject, which is so unfortunate, just because it might have been something I would have been interested in, but I didn't have that because of that biased perspective. So keep learning, keep asking questions, keep the ability to form a community open, are all pieces that I hope to solve with Northstarre. So with that, I'll pass it off to Power Up with Steam information as well. And thank you again to all the panelists and Devanshi for coordinating.
Sorry, I think I was muted. But yes, thanks, Mel, for sharing that information. If you do want to get involved with Power Up with Steam or be informed about new webinars and workshops, all age students can get involved with the Q&A webinars with female role models, either college students like today or female professionals. And if you're a high school student, you can also volunteer with Power Up with Steam. I know we are partnering with several schools and hosting workshops. So if that's something that interests you, or you know of someone that it interests, feel free to, spread the word and share with those around you. It's a really cool experience, and pretty much all of our volunteers really love it. And if you know a middle schooler, elementary schooler, or if you are one yourself, hopefully you're not in elementary school. Otherwise, you'd be very confused. But if you know of someone, then please tell them to attend the workshops. They are right now school specific, but we have done several workshops where it's been community specific, and just getting the word out there would be really cool, and just excite girls about STEM, which I think is important to do from earlier on, which is when like the divide really starts between like males in STEM and females in STEM. But overall, thank you guys so much for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I think my email was in the email I sent out to everyone for the registration link. But other than that, have a great rest of your day and see you guys soon.